Bloom News Brief. More info at fullandbloom.com. To celebrate Ozzy's 73rd birthday, Guitar World reposted a really cool interview they did with the Prince of Darkness back in 1990. Here's a few highlights. On finding guitarist Randy Rhoads. The auditioning process was so embarrassing. How do you tell someone that they're not what you're looking for? Back then, everyone was trying to clone Jimi Hendrix. I heard nothing but Purple Haze and Foxy Lady riffs. One guy even hooked up several tape recorders and echo units so he could play both the lead and the rhythms to Hendrix tunes simultaneously. It was a nightmare. I had almost given up when somebody told Sharon about this great guitar player in town named Randy Rhoads. Shortly afterward, Randy came over to my Los Angeles apartment. He was so frail, tiny, and effeminate that I thought, oh no, oh hell. But out of politeness, I invited him to play the next day. Unfortunately, when he turned up, I was stoned out of my mind. I was on another planet. Some guy woke me up and said, he's here. I looked up and Randy started playing from this tiny amp. Even in my semi-consciousness, he blew my mind. I told him to come by the next day and that he had the gig. The next day, I told someone that I dreamed that I hired a guitar player. They told me I didn't dream it and that he was coming that day. I thought, oh God, what have I done? I hope he can play. On Randy's weaknesses as a player. He didn't really have any weaknesses. I was the one who needed work. I had just come from Sabbath and Tony Iommi was a bit of a tyrant. His attitude was that I was the singer, I was allocated a space, and if I couldn't come up with anything, then I was screwed. Whereas Randy would work with me. Randy had patience because he was a guitar teacher. It was potentially a very frustrating situation for him because I couldn't play a musical instrument. But he was always supportive and would say things like, try bending a note here, or try this key. It was a bit like going to music school. Randy was very instrumental in bringing me out of me. The first two Ozzy albums are by far the greatest things I've ever done. He was too good to last. On guitarist Jake E. Lee. Well, Jake was fine for the first 3 days. Then he wanted to take over. Randy wasn't like that. He was one of the cool guys. I wouldn't say Jake and I got along, but I wouldn't say we didn't get along. But in the last few years, he became very reserved and it was hard to communicate with him. We lived together in a house in Beverly Hills and we never spoke. It wasn't because we didn't like each other, we just didn't have anything to say. It was similar to the relationship I had with Tony Iommi. We'd get together to rehearse, write a mediocre song, and then go our own way. It's not the relationship I wanted with Jake, but a festering cancer set in. I wouldn't have it. If I ask, what do you think of that? I want a reaction. If it's negative, we'll try something else. That's not a problem. But Jake would shrug his shoulders, raise an eyebrow, and walk away. The word band means band of men, an army, a platoon, a unit. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If there's a communication breakdown, you've got no unit. To be fair, Jake did have a fantastic presence and he was a great guitar player. On guitarist Tony Iommi. In the beginning, he was brilliant. He was the master of heavy metal riffs. He was very clever, but I never really knew Tony. We rarely spoke. He was the God Almighty figure in the band and verged on being a bully. I must have learned something from him, though, because when I left, I did pretty well on my own. I still keep in touch with the rest of the band, but I don't speak with Tony because we never talked when I was in the band. He was very intimidating. To be honest, toward the end, his playing bored me because everyone else was progressing and he wasn't. That's probably not fair, given his problems with his fingers. I should be grateful for Black Sabbath, but Tony needs to stop writing about devils and bullshit. It's already been done. Ultimately, I think it was good that I moved on when I did. It was starting to get frustrating because Tony would get a good headbanger going, then he'd start doing all this weird stuff. It started getting too complicated. To read the entire interview, click the link in the description.